how insurance claims are going away.
I don't believe that. I've kind of been around long enough to not take that too seriously. If you design your business that's dependent on hurricanes, it's not going to go very well if there's no hurricane. If you could just learn the basics of the building codes, most adjusters don't know anything about building codes. So there's
Hmm.
the advantage. To me, every job site is like a crime scene that has to be investigated.
Hey, how's it going? It's Tim Brown, and this is the Hook Better Leads podcast. And today I have Chad Michael of Insurance Restoration Training on. How you doing, Chad?
I am very well, thanks. How about yourself, Tim?
I'm doing excellent. And today we're talking about how insurance claims are going away, right? And tell me a little bit about your background, and then about that idea about how insurance claims are going away.
Sure. Yeah, that's hilarious, by the way. That is
Yeah.
hilarious. So I'm starting my 24th year in this industry, and that's comical that you say that because that's something that I've been hearing, since I first began, was that insurance work is going away, the whole game's changing, property damage insurance coverage is not even going to exist. Uh, I don't believe that. I've kind of been around long enough to not take that too seriously. Does it change? Absolutely. I mean, transitions and evolves all the time, and the insurance companies are always going to come up with new ways to throw obstacles into the paths of contractors and property owners who are trying to get their repairs fixed, right? But it's not going to go away. I don't see the insurance companies ceasing to take and accept people's premiums to pay for property damage. But my background, so I started out, the my very first entry into the industry was a roofing sales rep. There was a hailstorm in my backyard in Ohio that I didn't even know about, but I went to apply for a job. I had a landscaping company that I totally ran into the ground. It was a disaster, and I found myself looking for a job. And I was looking in the paper, in the classifieds, if that dates me. But and I saw a job for a roofing sales position, and I went in and learned all about the hail, and was fascinated that insurance companies would pay for this, and that hail did that much damage to the roof. But I didn't do that well in the beginning. I really did. People would think that I did super well getting started, but I didn't. It was before Eagle View, and you had to hand draw the roof and do all the calculations, which I found extremely crippling because I mean I could get through it and do it, and today I could still do it. But in the very beginning, that was tough because I didn't even know what the eave was, the rake. I
Geometry,
didn't know
man.
all these.
That's
Yeah,
geometry. I
geometry.
couldn't
I
do
mean,
that.
oh, it was very, very
Young,
complicated,
young
to
bucks will
me.
never know the pain, huh?
It was very tough. And so I
That's
was
funny.
kind of in and out of it. I struggled with it. I was doing other things, I was helping my cousin with his business and doing with a mortgage business and doing other type of work. And it just didn't look like I had much of a future in that industry until '04 came around, and Hurricanes Gene, Charlie, Francis, and Ivan all hit Florida like within a month of each other. Like it was really crazy. So there's many places in Florida where there's just tons of work. And my wife, her friend was dating a guy. I know it's complicated, but he was in town in Dayton, Ohio, where I'm from. And he was back in town in Dayton for the weekend, and he had been down in Orlando working on the roofs down there. And he was like, "Oh, Chad, you can make millions of dollars." He's a cowboy guy. And, down there, and he set me up with a company that he had all these promises worked out that never came to pass. Like went and worked for several different contractors that really didn't have their stuff together in Florida. And then I really started to get it. I started to use Xactimate even back then, and started to figure out, how to sort of use the insurance company's methods against them, and got better at the estimating angle and the supplements. And that's really where I found my niche, was in the inspections, the estimates, and the supplements when it comes to the insurance companies. And I ultimately ended up, starting my own company in Florida. and then 2005, the next year after those storms was Hurricane Wilma in South Florida. Really cleaned up, did very well down there. And then, but I made the mistake then of thinking that there was always going to be a hurricane every year in Florida. And I think everybody else thought that too. There were so many happening that we all
Yeah.
thought, there was certain types of businesses that were opening that were just like dependent on hurricanes, like hurricane shutter companies and things like that. And
Mhm.
it just didn't work out for me because there wouldn't be another major hurricane to really strike of any significance Florida for another 12 years.
Hmm.
So if you kind of do look at the math there on what year that was, 2005, then 2006, I was still doing pretty well. Started to slow down in 2007, and then the real estate crisis came in 2008. So construction, and I had morphed into doing more retail work at that point, had just ground to a halt. And so I was dying in Florida. I didn't know what I was going to do. And then 2000, the 2008 Hurricane Ike hit Texas, South Texas. And so I was like, oh, new life. This is a storm I could work and I could get, started up again and kind of restart myself. And so I went to Texas. That was my beginning of my Texas journey, which lasted another 15 years. I would ultimately move there, settle down in Dallas. And the mistake I made in Florida was not doing any other type of insurance restoration work. I was only doing hurricane work. Like I didn't do water damage work, fire damage, hail damage. I still didn't do a lot of hail damage. And that was the mistake because if you design your business that's dependent on hurricanes, it's not going to go very well if there's no hurricanes. But all
Yeah.
those other types of occasions happen all the time. And so when I went to Dallas, I really got more and more serious about the water damage side of it, the fire damage and hail damage. I didn't know that Dallas was so active with hail at that time, but had a good career there. I got into more commercial work, so before I knew it, I was doing an apartment complex fire damage project, worth almost $1 million, and did other jobs that were in the millions. And so things got a lot better for me again in Texas. I had a daughter in 2009, and that just changed everything. I at one point I was about 100 pounds heavier than I am right now. I had high blood pressure, challenges, and I mean I was twice the size. I have to show you a picture later on, but I started to get serious about my health. Because I realized that a lot of my problems were coming from the business, from work. I loved the challenges of the insurance company. That was the thing I enjoyed. I loved it. That's my passion. But everything else associated with it was draining me dry. And I was getting older, and I realized that I really wanted to do what I enjoyed the most, which was not all of it. It was only one aspect of it. And so I was able to make an exit and sell my company and started online supplementing company, an online Xactimate estimate writing company. And at the time, 2010, 2011 is when I really got that off the ground. There was no one else doing it. Now there are probably hundreds of companies doing it, but the technology just wasn't there yet as far as designing a portal and managing a bunch of clients and like a CRM, but I had the challenge of managing my clients' clients. So I designed on my site a portal to handle the entire process. And before I know it, I'm doing 100 and thousands of Xactimate estimates all over the country and in Canada. We were writing estimates in French in Quebec, at Xactimate estimates. So that really took off. And then I got it to where that was too big for me. There's like, I've realized as I've gotten older that the more people you have working for you, it's like you work for those people. You're constantly just grinding, working all the time. And I realized that I wanted to spend, more time with my daughter, more time with my family, and slow it down a bit. I was getting older. So I ended up selling that company and got more into the training aspect of things. And the reason why I did that, I know I'm just talking and talking, but the training, try to get through as quick as I can. The training aspect of it began because my clients who I was writing estimates for, they were not doing good inspections. They weren't getting me good photos that we could use to write better estimates. So I
Mm.
had a guy in San Antonio ask me, can you do a video and to show my guys, my sales reps, how to do better inspections? And so I just moved into my house at the time that had hail damage and it was vacant. And so I went around and did videos, but I realized I had no way of sending this video. I didn't know how to send it. And so I put it on YouTube to send it to them, just share the link. And my YouTube channel just sort of took off accidentally. Like I had other
Mm.
people watching it and asking me questions and how do you do this and how do you do that?
Was this
And so
before
I
company
started
cam or
sharing.
what?
Oh, it was crazy. Yeah, it was before company came. So I started doing this thing where I would share an Xactimate estimate from like State Farm and go through it and show where it was kind of wrong. It's called "What's Wrong with This Insurance Estimate,"
Huh.
and then I would show the estimate that I wrote and then share that, and then show the revised copy of where it ended up, and then I'd made that a series and kept doing that. And so just by mistake realized that there was a vacuum for information. People
Mhm.
didn't know just basic stuff about handling supplements with insurance companies. And so
Mhm.
that led me to start an online training course 5 years ago, and where I have almost 1,900 students today, and then we do the live events.
Awesome. And I'm excited to talk about a few key nuggets that you've gotten that you know really help people on inspections, estimates, and supplements.
Sure.
Before we get into that, I just want to talk briefly about the current state of the relationship between roofers and insurance companies. I think, as an outside perspective, I have a basic thought that is not the predominant thought for roofers generally, which is like, why is this your job with insurance companies? Do you know what I mean? Like a lot of these things don't seem to be related to roofing. You know what I mean? Like you're talking about
Yeah.
we put on roofs, we go out to a customer with a problem and then we put on roofs. There's just a little bit of like, why is this whole thing with the insurance company your job? So
Yeah.
where,
It's
because
crazy,
it
right?
feels like it's like it feels like it's like couldn't have always been this way. Why are we here?
Yeah. That's such a good question, right? And it's a good,
It's
take
philosophical.
on
I get it,
things.
but we'll get into nitty gritty in a second. But I just want to like, from your
Yeah.
perspective,
Happy to
why is
answer
this
it.
River's job? Yeah.
Happy to answer. One of the
Yeah.
things about my events is I've, personally met well over 1,000 contractors face to face all over the country, and I've heard them, their questions. We do a lot of questions and answers, and I get a lot of, questions about these kind of things. I think one of the things that's going around the industry that you hear about is, have you heard about the lump sum method? Have you heard
Yeah.
that term, the
Yeah.
lump sum method? Like,
Yeah.
that's just to give you a quick example. One of the things that I think causes problems, like the lump sum method, is basically saying, look, we reject your Xactimate estimating software, Mr. Insurance Company. We don't have to use it, which is true. You don't have to use it. There's nothing that says that roofers or any other contractors have to use Xactimate, which is the pricing software for anybody that doesn't know watching this, that most insurance companies use, over 90% of them, to price all of the materials on the job, right? So the reason why jobs are short, okay, the reason why the prices are short, and they're all short. Every insurance estimate I've ever looked at is short. And the reason why, though, is not because of the software they're using, it's because they're missing line items from the estimate. It's as simple as that. They're missing line items. Each line item equals a dollar amount, right? And so, like, roofers run into problems because they'll get there and they'll say, okay, I'm going to do this roof. It's, 50 squares. It's a laminated composition shingle roof, and it's going to be this amount, and they'll put a dollar amount on it, right? And they'll submit it that way. And so a homeowner, for example, submits that to their adjuster, and the adjuster's like, okay, like we might pay for that, even though it's well over our estimate that we wrote previously, we might pay for that, but we need a breakdown of what all that's including. We need the line items, right? And so The lump sum method is a method where you're just like, screw you. I'm not breaking it down for you. This is my
Mhm.
price. You're either going to pay it or you're not going to pay it. And so most of the time, that's going to cause friction. Almost all the time, that's going to cause friction, whether right or wrong. I'm not saying that it should cause friction. I mean, maybe the insurance company should pay for it, right? But they're just most likely not going to. So they're going to push back. And so instead of going through that process and giving the answers back to the insurance company and playing along with them at least, then the lump sum guys, from what I could tell, is that crowd is they're like, if you don't pay it, then we're just going to go to appraisal. Okay, send it straight to appraisal. Or some of them will, have their clients send it out to a public adjuster, and maybe that ends
And
up in
you
appraisal, or they'll
and
or
you
they'll
you
send it out to a
say
lawyer.
don't do appraisals. So
Yeah,
why
well,
are
I
you
do.
saying don't do appraisals? If you could give it to me in a minute or less, why
Okay,
not
so
do
first,
it?
I can qualify that by saying you could say I have no idea what I'm talking about because I've never done an appraisal. Never done an appraisal.
If you're not using Company Cam, you're in the old ways. If you are taking pictures, you're going through extra steps of having to download them on a computer, having to email them out to people, show somebody, print them out, whatever it is. Company Cam has everything you want.
The reason why I say don't do appraisals is because through the appraisal process, you essentially have one bite at the apple. Once you go through the process, if the property owner has an appraiser that they use that's on their side, the insurance company has an appraiser that they use that's on their side, then they have a third party, so-called unbiased umpire that's there in the middle to decide if they can't come up with an agreement, right? Well, if they come up with an agreement, then that's binding. All right. That amount is binding. If there's something else that comes up on the job, it's not getting paid for. So, I mean,
Mm.
my thing is like what I do is like people ask how many rounds you have to go through the supplementing process. The answer, as many rounds as necessary, as many rounds as it takes, as many as necessary.
This kind
Whereas
of
the
gets to my
supplementing,
question. Can I just stop you for a second? This
yeah,
kind of gets to my question around why is it our job? Isn't that amount of rounds exhausting the
it
resources of the roofer?
it is, but I try to keep my supplementing just to the estimating part of things. Okay.
Mm.
Meaning like your estimate is short because it doesn't have enough line items, okay? And part of the reason why that is because you didn't do a good enough inspection, so you didn't even see a lot of the damage, all right? So I
Hmm.
document that damage because to me, every job site is like a crime scene that has to be investigated. I'm a little more
Hmm.
old-fashioned in the sense that I'm not going to use any silver bullets or magic forms or policy language or law books to try to achieve my result. What I'm going to do is go and document the actual damage that is there, that actually happened, and collect that like it's evidence. Like the whole place has to be dusted for prints, and then
How
put it
long
into
should
a legible format.
how long should an inspection take, a roof inspection take?
Great question. So I think that, if people ask me, do you ever write an estimate just for a roof? No, because if there's something that happened to the roof, there's something that happened somewhere else on the property. So any property I look at, if it is a roof damage claim, I'm probably looking at every room, closet, and hallway in the whole the attic. I'm flying a drone. I'm getting up on the roof. I'm doing a lot more. Every inch of every elevation is going to get looked at, right?
Would
Everything.
you
So
say
every
that
ceiling.
a would you say that a roof inspection without looking at an attic is incomplete?
It's incompetence is what it is. Especially if you have a way of getting into the attic, then it's incompetence. I mean, because if there's damage to the decking, for example, and people they run in this challenge where the insurance company says we're not going to pay for the decking because we don't pay for rot. See, that's policy language, right? I stay away from policy language. But what it is, though, is it's against building code. So if there's wet decking, there's like three different building codes that should get that decking approved. The insurance adjuster most likely has no idea about that. I mean, and that's one of the arbitrages, one of the weaknesses that the insurance companies have that most contractors don't see. See, most contractors, we come into these conflicts with adjusters with our arms tied behind our back. And the reason is because the adjuster's always like, We don't pay for that. The policy doesn't cover that. The policy this, the policy that. If an adjuster ever says that to me, I will physically repel from them and say, "Whoa, it sounds to me like you're discussing policy and coverage, and I can't discuss that." Okay, so like as a contractor, the contractor cannot discuss policy coverage. It's out of bounds. And so, but there are so many people out there saying that the contractor cannot discuss things that they can. They say that they can't discuss price, they can't identify damage. Some say that they're not allowed to talk to the adjusters at all. Those are all myths and they're all very inaccurate. But the other thing they are allowed to discuss is building codes.
Yeah.
Contractors have to comply with building codes. It is the law. And so in insurance policies, I know I say I don't like to talk about policy, but there is ordinance and law. So that's building
Not with
code
the adjuster.
compliance coverage.
We can
Yeah, well,
talk about it, but not with the adjuster.
through my course, I qualify. Like you need to know,
Yeah.
do they have the coverage, and do they have ordinance and law, right? And that's building code compliance. If they have that, then the insurance company has to pay to comply with the code. So I'm not like, look, I
And
represent my
what would you say,
client.
what percentage of like homeowner policies have building code compliance in them as you're talking about it? You said
Most
if they
most
have
of
that.
them Most of them, think of it this way, if they have a mortgage, a conventional mortgage, they probably have to have it, right? So
Okay, so
so you would think that,
it's really a very small percentage that doesn't need the building
correct.
code stuff. Yeah,
Correct.
okay.
You do run into it, you do see it, and it's very, very important to know if they have it or not. But see, the thing is that most contractors don't know anything about building codes. Even in Florida, where they have to go through testing, and other states where it's very strict, but they don't know anything really about them.
I think,
I was one of those guys. I didn't
yeah,
know. I thought that the people I was around did, so I didn't have to really know as much. I now realize those people didn't know anything about building codes
yeah,
either.
yeah, yeah,
But here's the thing: if you could just learn the basics of the building codes, most adjusters don't know anything about building codes. So there's the
Mhm.
advantage. There's the advantage. And
Yeah,
so my thing is, I try to stay away from policy coverage. And you ask, why should a roofer have to do all this, right? As a
yeah.
contractor. My thing is, I just want to focus on the damage, right? The repairs that it's going to take to fix it, the building codes that I have to comply with to get there, right? And including each and every line item. And to me, in the estimate, if I could back up every item with a photo and or a building code, that would be great. I can't
Mm.
do that on every item, but I sure am gunning for it. And I'm using very extensive footnotes. The contractor is not hired to win an insurance claim. They're not hired
That's
to
what I'm
fix
saying.
a
Yeah,
roof. They're not hired to do any of that. My thing is the contractor at a very basic and fundamental level, they are hired to do one thing. The thing they're contractually obligated to do is to perform all repairs that are prescribed by the insurance claim, period. So, like if I'm a
so
contractor and I
you're
show up to
like
me with an
your
adjuster,
sentence, right? You're trying to teach that sentence to people. I'm hired to
I
perform.
say it over and over and over and over and over. Like almost every response to an adjuster, they say, "We're not paying for that. Why do you have that on your estimate?" My thing would start from, "Well, Mr. Adjuster, I was hired as the contractor to perform all repairs that are prescribed by you. You laid it out this way. I attempted to make those repairs to go through that process, and I ran into a brick wall. It won't work because of ABC, including building codes and other information."
As a non-roofer, I just want to note, because we're talking about how, the funny intro to this is that all insurance claims are going away. I see it very simply in a way. It's like, is all roof damage going away? Because
Yeah.
so all roof damage is not going away. So then there's still roofs to replace. This just happens to be the funny, weird way that we have to get roofs replaced at the moment. We have to go through all this bureaucracy.
Yeah.
But why do insurance companies really ultimately want to cover real damage? Why? Because it's obligated by the fact that this homeowner was paying for a long time, and ultimately if the homeowners all hate them, then they're not going to get any more money. But it's also, they don't want there to be more damage, right? Because if you have like mold in a house, this house could be ruined.
Totally.
There's an
Yeah. I
element,
mean, and
like,
a
if
side
they're
note,
not
you never say the word mold in my industry, okay? Just anybody
okay,
watching this, never say
okay.
that word mold. Don't say
Why?
rot.
Because it's
Don't
like
say mold. I mean,
why?
because Why? Because mold usually has a separate area where
Okay.
there's a max on what they'll pay for, right? But and my
Okay.
thing
Yeah.
is always this. This is very important. What caused the mold? What causes
Yeah.
mold?
Yeah.
Let me ask you, what causes mold?
Does your company want to build your brand and get more jobs in the neighborhoods you're currently working in?
The Brick by Brick playbook allows you to establish your brand, your reputation, and gain trust in any neighborhood in your service area with a series of 4 postcards sent once a week to the neighbors of your current jobs. If you want to get more work in the neighborhoods you're currently working in, get with the team at Dope Marketing and get your Brick by Brick playbook set up today.
Tim,
Water getting into
well,
the structure.
you got the answer. First word out of
Yeah.
your mouth, there it is, right there. Bingo.
Yeah.
Water damage. Okay, so
Yeah.
most of the protocol that it takes to make the
Yeah.
repairs for mold is very similar to water damage. So if you keep it in the water damage category and not be talking and using the word mold, you're going to get paid to do all of the work to get it back to where it needs to be.
Yeah.
Typically,
And
usually.
sorry, what I was kind of just getting at there is like there will always be there's always damage to roofs, and there's always a need to fix those. And if you don't fix it, there's deeper problems, right? So there's always
Correct.
going to be a
Correct.
mechanism there. It happens to be insurance now. I think this is an interesting, like a lot of your courses, your workshops that you put on around the country. Partly you're just teaching roofers, it sounds like, how to talk about these things as to get more things approved.
Absolutely. And to make
And
it,
that's
listen, to make it
yeah.
easier, right? So one thing I'm remiss if I don't say this. The biggest reason why I don't advocate appraisals, immediately sending it out to a public adjuster. Like public adjusters are awesome. Some of them are. There's a small percentage I find that are really, really good. But they are needed. So I don't want to throw them under the bus. A lot of I'm friends with. I'm hired
Yeah.
by some of them. They come to my events. So I can't talk negatively. I do believe in the concept of a public adjuster, but I think people go wrong where they're sending everything out to a public adjuster.
Yeah.
So, but here, appraisal, public adjuster, or sending it out to an attorney, which also sometimes you have to do.
Yeah.
Any of those 3 things, delay. It takes forever to get through that process. So, I mean, when you go through the appraisal process, the nationwide average that I've sort of come up with unofficially from doing all these events, I ask the questions, how long does it take you on average? I would say it's 8 to 12 months. 8 to 12 months. And what client, property owner wants to go through that? When actually, man, you don't have to. You don't have to. If you use the methods of actually putting in the work to do the inspection, to identify the damage, and to put it into a legible format where you can show that evidence, okay, into an accurate estimate with all the line items there, and then working with the insurance company, like going through dealing with their nonsense, but continuing to work with it. They ask you questions, you get back to them, right? When they write an estimate, and you have your rebuttal ready, right? So I mean, but it's putting in the work. It really is putting in the work, and the supplement doesn't end when you get through the approval process and you go build the roof. When you go build it, you're continuing to supplement because there are other things that are coming up during the job and things that they didn't want to pay for previously that you have to prove during the build. So I really advocate documenting the process thoroughly while you're building, and then you sort of modify you revise your estimate after you're finished with the job, and then it becomes an invoice. So it's estimating and invoice management.
I gotta imagine that insurance companies hate you.
People say that, and they say like they imagine me out there wrestling around with them, but it's actually the exact opposite. Maybe from a top down level, if they even know about me, right?
I'm just saying,
But
like, for instance, I went and saw, Chad. I'm actually kind of like sad that this happened, but I was at an event. I was part of an event that Steve Badger spoke at. It was a
okay,
Jen Silver event that we did at Job Nimbus headquarters in Utah, and she had him as her guest, and he talks a lot of smack about people that are really into supplements. He wants like as an advocate for insurance companies, he's kind of cartoonish about it, so it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
But like he's like essentially like he's like, we want you to just be done. We don't want you to
Yeah.
supplement. They
You know
basically
what?
like
I actually I've seen Steve Badger. He may see this, but like I have he may not think this, but I have a strange feeling that we would get along just fine if he really knew what I'm doing, because I'm not trying to get to advocate for people to get over on the insurance companies. I'm just like there to call it like it is, to make it accurate. The accuracy actually does win if you know how to go about getting, collecting the evidence properly. That's the thing is like, so like with insurance companies, one of my methods, one of my strategies actually is to go out and try to do the insurance adjuster's estimate for them. Like if we get through the process together and they understand that I'm using Xactimate like they are, then I could provide my ESX data file for them that they can plug into their system, remove my letterhead, put their letterhead on it, maybe still make some changes to my estimate, but I've done all their work for them. I've done all the
mm,
sketches, I've done all the photos, like all the really hard work that takes time. I'm trying to actually do that for them. But they have to be able to be confident in my abilities to do that too. Throughout that meeting, they don't want to have shoddy work, put their name on shoddy work, So, but I really try to do their work for them as much as possible, at least where it comes to the estimate side of things. But it's accurate and it's going through and it's not adding fluff on there. Like we're not putting a porter potty and a crane on a
mm,
job site and a storage container where it's like a 20 square roof. Like I
yeah.
think too many people do that and they put way too many unnecessary things on there that they can't justify. And that gives the roofers a bad name. And that's why I think you
Yeah,
started with in this show.
my question is, how are we supposed to pee if we
What?
can't get a porta potty? Okay, I saw.
I mean,
You
how
ever see
long
a
are you doing
Gatorade?
this
You ever
job? It
see a
takes like a
Gatorade
few
bottle
hours.
full
It takes a
of
day.
piss? Yeah. You ever see a Gatorade bottle full of piss on a job site? It doesn't look that professional to the homeowner.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Get your ass in the truck and drive down to the gas station around the corner. That's what I
all
say.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or somebody make a shield, somebody make a barrier.
But don't put the porta potty on the estimate. I feel you. All right. This
Yeah.
is a short podcast, so I appreciate you providing
You
as
got
much
it, man.
value as possible. And like, I just want to note, I personally believe in the longer workshop style as a way to train your people. I think like it's better sometimes than the variety show thing that we
Yeah,
do at
sure.
events. I
Uh-huh.
like the deeper, all right,
Deep
everyone get
dive,
out
yeah.
the clipboard. Let's take a ton of notes. Let's get out of this thing with some like money makers. Um,
Yeah. We go
you want
all
to talk about
day.
it? Yeah, I love that. So talk to me. What are your next couple locations?
Sure,
This will
man.
probably go out the next couple weeks.
I'm leaving tomorrow. I'm in so I live in Springboro, Ohio. I moved from Dallas, Texas after my divorce. And but which was last year. Just finalized it recently. But I'm leaving for driving to Grand Rapids, where I have an event Friday is my next one, and
Grand
then after
Rapids,
that is
which
Michigan.
Michigan. Okay.
Michigan, yeah. And so really looking forward to that one. And then Washington, D.C. comes after that, Chicago. Um, insurancerestorationtraining.com is my
Okay.
website, and I
Awesome.
always have like a link to our events there. And
And
we
I hear
do
great
an
word of
all day.
mouth about these events. Like I've seen a lot of chatter online about people saying these events are really, really good for them and their team. We love training as leaders and as company owners, but like sometimes you just got to get your people because, like, okay, building codes, Mr. CEO, great. How do you get this
Yeah,
stuff proliferated? And sometimes people can hear they can only take in so much from us as business owners too. They need other people to tell them the same things, and then they get it. So
yeah.
sometimes just go get your people to these things. Even if you're training internally, these things are really good to kind of just drill people on important stuff. So I mean, this stuff makes people money basically.
Well, I started in 2019. I started as the 100 town tour where I went to 100 places that year, and
Wild.
but then it rolled into 2020, and then COVID happened, and I got back to it the next year. But So I started it almost 5 years ago, and I'm still doing it. I really enjoy it a lot. Like the many times I've taken breaks and then I gear it back up again, but I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to do it again. But I always want to get back out there. I love these training events more than anything, I believe. And I've had events where there's like 150 people there, and it's just amazing that these people would want to even hear anything I have to say. But it has changed people's lives, and I only know that from what they've told me, But yeah, we do. It's an all day deep dive. We have a full buffet lunch, for an hour in the middle. And I give away a ton of documents and forms, building codes, 27 different Xactimate estimate templates for different projects that I personally wrote. They get to keep,
Wow.
a lot of valuable information. And so I do that. I
What's the
do
ticket price
private
on
company
some of the?
training. So
What's
what?
the ticket? What's your average ticket price
It's
normally?
right now they're 500. They were
Okay,
500 a ticket. If you buy five, you get a sixth one for free. And
I like
just
that.
raise
That's
the
smart.
just raise the prices. The way I do that's the early bird discount. Once you hit 50, they go up to like 50 tickets sold. It goes up to 700. It used to be 300 going up to 500. And it was just very difficult because I don't have any sponsors or vendors that I have. And so, you have 150 people, you think, well, you're making a ton of money. You're really not. You have the advertising and the
Oh man,
hotel expenses,
it's
there's
very
not,
expensive. Yeah, everything's
yeah,
so expensive. I'll be
it's not a
real.
profitable gig.
Chad, you're a beast. I mean, like these things are not that. I mean, I've been a part of a lot of events that have lost money
Yeah,
personally.
oh
Like
yeah.
unfortunately,
Yeah.
and I mean,
It
like
looks
we
a
do it.
lot easier than it really is, doesn't it, man?
Yeah,
To go
exactly.
on a
And I
tour.
kind of knew it was going to be tough. So I knew it going into it. But like I'm doing it for a different reason. I'm doing it because I want the exposure. But
Of course, yeah.
those types of events get they're they can be less valuable for that reason because there's too many of us trying to get exposure from them and not enough real meat and potatoes
Real
training.
value, yeah. Yeah.
And your time, and I'm not saying they're all like that, but I'm saying like there's an element of that, right? So your time is really important. Your team's time is really important. And maybe a
Hmm.
owner can go to those things and meet some new vendors and that's valuable and stuff like that. But like when you bring out five people from your team, it's nice to go to these deeper training events because like I need everyone here to get nuggets that's going to make
Yeah.
our company money.
Oh,
That's like
I
crucial.
tell people in the beginning, I am desperate to provide you with value today.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I lay it all out there. Like I probably have a complex, that I don't deliver enough, so I'm always
Yeah.
trying to over deliver, I'm like, always trying to go beyond what people expect of me to do,
It's funny though because like
Um,
that's I almost people are like there all these events should be free and I'm like literally like no. These
well,
events
dude,
should we should do a better job on the front end making sure they're valuable and you should pay for your
let me,
events. And when you pay
let
for
me,
your
let,
events, yeah.
dude, I've heard all that all my life. Let me prove it to you right now. I did a free event in Cape Coral back a couple months ago. It was the only free event I've ever done. And I was like, I'm going to put on a free event for all these contractors down here really getting it. And I registered 99 tickets, okay, where people signed up for free. 99. No advertising. I just put it out on Facebook a few times. 99. Freaking 33 people showed up, dude. I paid for like all this food that they wouldn't even let me take with me. And I'm just like, I'm so heartbroken that these folks took that opportunity and ruined it for everybody. You know what I mean? Like I can never
The
do that again.
danger of free
So,
events.
oh, dude, I mean, I'm still paying for that one,
That's
So
so
yeah,
funny.
yeah. But
Man,
I'm like you. Yeah. Exposure is
I
why I like to do it. I want to help people.
well, hey, I no man, I appreciate what you're doing out there, and yeah, if there's any other call to actions or anything else you want to do on this at the end here, but otherwise, yeah, just really
No,
appreciate you
yeah.
being on.
So just there's a few things I do. Like there's that. There is. I still work on. I still have an inspection, estimating, and supplement service. Just not as big as it once. I specialize in bigger projects and clients who have a lot of projects. So I still have that. I do company training. I have my online training course still at iescertified.com. All of these things you can get to, you can find through my website at insurancerestorationtraining.com.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for being on
Man,
the
thanks for having
podcast.
me, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
sir.
love
The
what you're
podcast.
doing, man.
Thank you. Put on by
You're an OG
hookagency.com.
yourself. You've been around for a number of
I'm not.
years. Like I
Oh,
went back.
that'd be so funny. Yeah. If I
If
was an
anybody
OG.
checks out your YouTube channel, like you've been doing this stuff for years and years and years and years, putting it in the
Yeah, yeah. And
trenches.
we've been talking, I
Respect.
mean, we've been trying to talk to contractors for like 6 years, but we
Sure.
really just started saying no to anybody who's not
Wow.
home service businesses or contractors 2 years ago now. So that's why I
Wow.
don't feel like I've been, I'm not like I haven't been
Sure.
fully knit
Sure.
for 2 years, but we've been talking to roofers for a long time. And I've had a client for even longer than I've had my business, a roofing client for, I think it's like 9 years now. Kind of crazy. But yeah, I guess you could say I'm a little bit of an OG, but that feels
Dude,
weird
you're
to say. So
you're a real practitioner. That's what that
thank you.
is, you know.
I
So
appreciate that. I do think people do notice how relentless we are, at least on content. And that kind of speaks to other things. You know what I mean? Like if we're that relentless on our own, like social media and video and stuff like that, you best believe that we've got a high standard internally for how we handle our client services. So appreciate that, man.
absolutely, man. I'm a big fan. Keep winning, brother.
Awesome. Thank you,
All
sir.
right.
And
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks everyone for watching and listening. And we'll
Definitely.
see you next time. Bye.